It's my privilege to welcome Tyagarajan. He is the CEO of Genpact, a pioneering company in business process and solutions management outsourcing, now in about 17 countries with 51,000 employees, 3,000 plus processes, and 500 plus clients. It's a huge task, and you're heading 51,000 employee company. It's a pleasure to welcome you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Tiger, off the bat, it amazes not only me but many other people. When you look at BPO scene in India, it's sort of, people are, sort of comfortable now after about 10 years or so. But when you actually started, the model did not exist. The processes were not there. It's a different country, different language, or different languages, different cultures. And you were serving clients mostly in the US and in the Europe. So I'm trying to understand from you, how did this happen?
We've actually wondered, how we stumbled on it. So the true story is that our earlier CEO, Pramod, who at that time was the head of GE Capital, and at that time I used to be the CEO of the consumer finance businesses of GE Capital in India. We were all in a parking lot in Chennai, outside a large automotive manufacturing company, waiting to meet the CEO of the manufacturing company to do a deal, financial services deal in India. 45 degrees Celsius, so 110 plus degrees Fahrenheit, hot summer's day. And we're waiting for this meeting to start, and we are early. So we were chatting, and then, we just come out of another review where we had heard our US colleagues in the GE financial services business, GE capital business, saying it's so difficult to hire people. I don't know if you remember, but in 97, 98, the US was going through a big refi boom. So mortgage was through the roof, credit cards were through the roof, everyone was borrowing like crazy. And GE Capital was in a big acquisition spree. And the challenge they had was hiring enough people to do the work. So we actually, because we were setting up a financial services back office for ourselves in India, for our business, we said, can't we do a little piece for the US as well and help our sister businesses? So we put a proposal together, and GE being entrepreneurial in the way it works and thinks at that level, they said go ahead. That's how it started. Now the first set of work we got was credit card work, insurance work, long-term care insurance, mortgage insurance processing. And if you think about the Indian economy in 97, 98, these are products that no one even knew the meaning of. They didn't know the meaning of how to assess credit. They didn't know the meaning of any of these things. So we had to start from scratch. And when we hired people, we would actually teach them what is insurance. Because these are people who actually didn't have any insurance products at home. When we started doing call center work for example, appliances and so on, they didn't know what a microwave looks like because they didn't have a microwave ever, or a refrigerator. So deep inside our DNA now is a training methodology that we use to train people on everything. The other thing that we did was, we put out an ad and said, these are the types of jobs, so we want to hire people. Graduates, good graduates, etc. One ad, we got 20,000 responses, and we needed 150 people. We actually later on put a board outside our office, and this is true. As you enter the office, we actually had a board that says trespassers will be hired, but that's the beginning.
This is also true that in a country like India, like I said earlier, there's so much cultural inhibitions. Women for coming to work in droves, which didn't exist before. And the important, I think, differentiator was you were paying pretty decent salaries. That was the biggest incentive for all the youngsters to jump the gun of education, which actually may be harmful for them in the future, I don't know. But high school grads who spoke good English, or undergrads, they didn't want to pursue master because they're already getting decent amount of money compared to what they would have gotten had they pursued the path of education. How did you, tackle this particular challenge?
So first of all, we continue to hire only college graduates. We don't hire high school graduates. So we realized that a lot of people coming out of colleges and who wanted to pursue graduate education, not necessarily all of them were getting into the right graduate schools that they wanted immediately. So they said that they're going to spend some more time, learn more, and then apply again. So that was one group of people. Another group of people couldn't afford getting into the best schools that they wanted to get into. So they needed to work to earn money and then get in. Kind of what the US is pretty much the way it works, but in India that's not the way it works. People get into post-grad after undergrad almost immediately. So we tapped into a whole population that actually either did not want to do post-graduation or were waiting to do it at a later date or needed to accumulate money to do it at a later date. We have never paid the highest, and we still don't pay the highest. In fact, we pride ourselves in attracting talent by paying just around median. We believe that just by paying more, you don't necessarily attract the best people, neither do you retain the best people. We invest a lot of that in training and career building. But when we hired these people, we also were clear that we wanted to build a diverse pool of talent. We actually got, obviously, applications from a lot of women. Remember that we were hiring people to do work sometimes, in fact, in a lot of cases at night in India, because we wanted to give 24/7 coverage. And obviously, hiring women who work in the night in places like Delhi or Hyderabad, the families are very uncomfortable, and we were also not very happy about doing it without making changes in the way we run the business. Some of the most fundamental changes we did was we actually served food in the office as part of the overall package. So if you're 8-10 hours there, you get access to meals, so you don't have to go out. The second is, it also drove productivity, obviously. The second is we actually transported people from their home to the office and back to home, because no one could rely on the public transport system. It was not so safe and so on. Through doing those things, our population at the entry level was 50% women and 50% men, and we were very happy about that, because some of the work that we were doing, we needed a diverse talent of people. So a lot of the innovation that today is taken for granted in the industry came from sitting in a room and saying, how the hell do we tackle this? And some of us saying, okay, let's try this and let's try that.
In the US now, it's common knowledge that when you call a customer service toll-free number, you have to hear an Indian accent on the other end. And part of the blame, or most of the blame, should go to you guys.
Right.
But how are you moving up the value chain now? That was 10 years ago in the making.
Yeah.
But processes have changed,
Yeah.
customers have changed, things have changed around the world. So I'm trying to understand what is.
So first of all, while we started, one of the work streams that we started was customer service work. It always was only a small piece of our equation, even at that time. So, so within about 3 years, only about 25% of our business was call center work. Today, it's about 20% of the business. So we've always thought of ourselves as a broad range of business process and analytical services. We've always thought of ourselves as constantly moving up the value chain in every service line. And we've always thought of ourselves as we will, take something and drive it at a lower cost, but then the real value that we will drive is improvements in that process. And we've taken that to a real different level over the last 10 years. So, while the industry gets categorized as a call center industry, the reality is a lot of companies in the industry, and we are probably at the forefront of this, only about 20% of what we do is call center. So an example of what we would do is we would have people who actually close the books of companies. We would have people who actually do treasury back office work. We actually have people who design the logistics models that allow a logistics transporter to operate 20,000 trucks in the US in order to drive better fuel efficiency, in order to drive better utilization of trucks, in order to have on-time delivery. We would have someone who actually builds the underwriting model that makes sure that the right price point for the right risk profile, etc., for a consumer lending industry or for an insurance industry and so on. So a lot of the work we do has migrated over the last 13 years from being simple work to complex work, from being process work and call center work to data work. So today, out of our $1.5 billion of revenue and 50,000 people, 20% is just analytical services. But the industry doesn't get recognized enough for it. They don't know us enough for it. So we are spending a lot of time actually explaining that to people. We call that whole area smart decision services. So it's actually saying that every company takes decisions. Our job is to help them take smarter decisions. So
when you look at other countries where you have invested in human resources, and you compare India, what is the competitive edge of India, and what it should do to continue to maintain that edge?
Yeah. So clearly, versus developed economies, the first competitive edge is cost. And cost is a good competitive edge to have, and we must continue to find a way to have that competitive edge as an economy. Knowing fully well that a Philippines or a China or an Eastern Europe or a Latin America also has similar cost competitive edges. Part of the cost competitiveness that you maintain is by making sure that the skills gap doesn't become so large that you have to spend so much money that it starts vitiating some of the cost advantage you have. And infrastructure cost. I think the inefficiency of infrastructure, the fact that some things take so long, the fact, for example, that to commute in Delhi or in Hyderabad takes forever, I think is a huge productivity loss. So I think maintaining that cost competitiveness is important. But I think it goes beyond that. Today, a lot of our clients work with us because we drive innovation for them. We drive analytical insights in their businesses and processes and data for them. India is actually a great place to tap into that intellectual capital. So while the education doesn't necessarily produce enough people, the reality is it still produces a lot of people with the right knowledge about science and math and economics and statistics that we tap into, that we then educate them on and make them learn, and then we use for our clients. So when I think about India, one of the best things about India is that you can constantly go up the value chain and you can create value for your clients. When you think about China, clearly one of the biggest advantages China has is the infrastructure really works. I think if you walk into a city in China and you want to set up something and there is nothing, it takes 3 months, 6 months for everything to be set up, because the government really participates very heavily in making that happen. I think English as a language of communication, China has still a long way to go. And that is a big advantage India has. Business language being English in many, many parts of the world. So I think there are some clear, distinct advantages that India has. The reality is, while it has 1 billion people and it has 300, 400 million people who keep coming out of colleges and are employable, etc., the reality is a lot of them are not employable. So I think that gap still needs to be bridged. If you don't bridge that gap and if you don't do all those things, then inflation will take over a lot. As far as we are concerned, we think about it as a portfolio of 17 countries. We keep adding countries, approximately 1 or 2 countries a year, and we'll manage the portfolio. We keep telling our people, if India doesn't deliver value, then it will start losing and other countries will gain. We will not lose as a company. It's the country that will lose.